having me at the NYJavaSIG. My name is Ray. I'm actually a developer advocate for Google Cloud Platform. And I'm actually based here in New York, so I just took the ACE train up here, and that was really quick. But then I think figuring out the display took more time than getting here. So part of my job is to bring some of our technology to developers all over the world. But the other side of it is that I try to make all of our stuff better, right? So I focus a lot on the Java experiences for the developers. And one of the things that we created recently is actually Spring Cloud GCP. So let me put that there. Oh, I forgot to record the screen, so there we go. All right. And present. Nice. So that is the thing I'm going to talk about today. But if you have any questions, any feedback, any comments, please go to the GitHub issues. I'm going to share the links later. But if you want to reach out to me directly, please find me on my Twitter @Statism. And I also have a site, statism.me, that has all of my talks. Hopefully this one will make it there as well. So the project I want to introduce you to is called Spring Cloud GCP. How many people here are Java developers? Oh, we're at JavaSIG, right? Yeah, there we go. I'm in the right place. Now, how many people here use Spring and Spring Boot? All right, sweet. Do you like Spring and Spring Boot, I hope? Yeah, very good. So the goal of this project, which is something that I actually pushed the team to start, it's been in the works for a year now. And prior to that, I worked with the team to define what they should be doing. I wrote a few POCs, and I'm very, very happy to see that this actually becomes something that we are collaborating with Pivotal actually. So the goal of this project is to make it super, super easy and super simple to use your existing Spring Boot applications and potentially use Google Cloud Managed Services if you do choose to use the cloud. Or that if you are tired of managing your on-premise stuff, just a lot of toil in terms of the ops around some of the things that you might be using, then you could also look into a managed service on the cloud so that you can actually do that migration fairly easily without having to change so much of your code. But if you are not doing the migration, if you're looking into a greenfield development where you do want to take advantage of the serverless stuff or manageless services, then you can just start your application and we'll cut down a lot of the boilerplate code. So I'm going to show you that later. Okay? So it was very exciting to work on this project because we actually collaborated very closely with Pivotal. And we worked with the people from Spring Cloud, like Spencer Gibbs and Mark Fisher on Spring Boot. And we even got Stefan and Dave Sayer to pitch in on how we are supposed to manage and create this project with the right structure that is idiomatic to Spring Boot developers, right? Because we don't want to do something that's out of your comfort zone where things feels different, things doesn't feel like Java or Spring anymore. So we collaborated very closely to make sure that's the case. So some of the things that you can do, for example, some of you might be using like Spring Cloud already, where you have maybe a configuration server, maybe you're using a message queue that you are managing on-prem today, whether it's RabbitMQ or something else. Maybe you're using a MySQL or PostgreSQL database. Or if you're trying to store data, just large amount of files, how do you actually do that? Right, so for most of the common use cases, we now have just direct integration with the Spring Boot ecosystem with very easy to use starter. So for example, if you want to store configuration in a central configuration server, but you do not want to manage the configuration server itself, right, because then you have to deal with high availability, you need to back them up properly, you have to do all of these operation type of thing. If you don't wanna manage your own configuration server, then you can just use our managed service, which is called runtime config. And the way that we integrated with this is by using Spring Cloud config. So if you're already using Spring Cloud configuration, it will just be a drop-in placement for this starter, and you're gonna be able to connect to our service directly. Similarly, with message queues, if you're using Spring integration for your pipelines, or if you're using Spring Cloud Stream or Dataflow, you can actually just drop in the starter for Popup, which is our managed service for topics and subscriptions. You can just drop that in, And without having to change your existing Spring integration code, you just have to change the binding from your existing messaging system, change the binding to the PubSub system. Then automatically your application is running against our system, and that's really it. What was really, really exciting to me is this Spring Cloud data, Spring data frameworks, where you can actually use object mapping, not just with RDBMS with JPA, but you are also able to use Spring data to access very simply access like MongoDB or other databases that may not be relational. But Google actually has a relational database that is actually strongly consistent, globally scaled, multi-regional, and relational. Okay. And I know some of those words don't go well together. How many people here have heard about the CAP theorem before? CAP theorem, yeah? It's a consistency, what is that? What's the second one? Availability and partition, right? And the theory was that you can only have 2 out of the 3. So either you do a relational database with strong consistency and availability, or you have a NoSQL database with partition potentially. What we have is called Cloud Spanner that is actually all 3. So it is a strongly consistent, let me repeat that, strongly consistent, relational, and globally scaled database that's multi-regional. So if you have a use case to deal with this type of data, this is a very awesome database to use. And we made it very, very easy to consume it just by integrating directly with Spring data. Okay? And there are a few other things like trace and logging. So why don't we just get into it? Let me see here. Yeah, let's just take a look. So my theory is that nothing exists in Spring unless it is on the start.spring.io. So you have to be on the Spring initializer. And very happy to say that the Spring Cloud GCP project is actually there. So for example, if you want a project that uses our SQL database, right, you just use JPA, maybe you use the REST repository, but all you really need to do is to add this GCP support, okay? And what it's going to do is to configure the generated project with some of the dependency management that we actually provide. Now, Spring Cloud GCP actually works with SpringBoot 2, okay? So it doesn't work with SpringBoot 1, because I think there's a very rapid migration to SpringBoot 2. And if you're using some of the Spring Cloud stuff, then naturally you have to use Spring Cloud eventually with it, right? So this is all you really need to do to generate a new project to start using some of the services. But I have a project created already. This is what you're going to see. Okay? So if you have an existing application, or if you're trying something new, the most important part of this is to add the Spring Cloud dependency bomb into your dependency management section here. And once you have it, then you can start adding some of our starters into your application without having so much of the version controls that you may actually have to add the versions directly into your bomb. So here I have a very simple application, right? I'm using JPA. I'm using Spring Data JPA. What that means is that, for starting, we have the entity annotation here. I just have one entity class, which is called event. I have the ID of the event and the name of the event, right? And the ID is auto-generated. And then I'm using the Spring Data with the REST repository. So all I need to do here to expose this domain object onto a RESTful endpoint is by using the JPA repository. The entity type here is event, and the key type here is long. But if I want to expose it via REST, then I just add the repository REST resource. Okay? And then I have the application class. By the way, this is just pretty much generated, right? In the application class, this is a Spring Boot application. Kickstarting it, and then I have a REST template which I added, which I'll get to use later. All right. So I'm just gonna run this very quickly. So I'm gonna do a Spring Boot run, and again, this is just a regular application. It has no GCP services at this very moment. Okay. So I just want to make sure everything works, and of course it starts with HSQL, which is the in-memory database, so I can test things out very easily. And if I do a curl, let me see here, curl HTTP localhost 8080. And yeah, let's see if that, yep. So if I curl localhost 8080, I can see the events database being exposed via the RESTful endpoint. If I go into it, I can see that I have no events. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and do a post. So I got this queued up, so I can do a curl post, right, on user being. Application JSON as the content type, going to the events URI, and then this is the payload for JSON. Maybe I should change it in QCon. It's technically JavaSIG, right? So I'm going to do that. right? And now I have the event posted, and if I go back to see all the events, I can see all the data. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. That's just what Spring can do right now. Okay. Now, suppose that you're looking into using the cloud, and you want to host this database on the cloud in a managed service. So by that I mean something like what we have is called Cloud SQL. So if I go down and say, let me go find SQL here. Yeah. So with Cloud SQL, what it can do for you is to allow you to create a new MySQL or PostgreSQL instance. And we can actually manage the multi-zone replication for you out of the box. So your MySQL installation just will be HA by default. And you can also set up maintenance schedules. You can say what time and on which day you should be doing the backups or the upgrades or whatever. So all of these things can be done directly just from the management user interface, or you can create this via Terraform or any of the other tools that you might be familiar with. I have a SQL database created already, so I'm just going to go back here. There it is. So I have this database called JHipster, which is an awesome project. It's an awesome application generator. Anyone here use JHipster before? Yeah, quite a few. Yeah. So I do this for a demo. But here's the database where I can go and create a new database and whatever, right? So I have something created. So this is what I'm going to do. Now you might say, wait a second, there's a public IP address here, all right? Why can't I just use a JDBC driver with a public IP and just connect to it with a username and password? Well, that would be really nice, and you could definitely do it that way. But what that means is you have to expose your database on a public network, and that is not so much fun to do. The thing about Google Cloud is that we take security very, very seriously. And of course, just having this public IP there doesn't mean you can actually access it. You can if you whitelist certain IP addresses to use it. But the right way to connect to this MySQL instance is actually use potentially a secure method that requires an SSL certificate. And we can actually generate an SSL certificate for your application that has the access to this database. And once you have this cert, then you can actually connect to it via basically almost mutual TLS. And then you can start transferring your username and password without having to fear of somebody else to intercept it, right? However, this SSL interaction is a little bit more difficult to do, especially in Java applications. How many people here love to write a Java thing that reads SSL certificates, or even rotating it, or just deal with custom certs, right? Very, very difficult to do. So there are two ways to connect to this database, potentially. One is to run a proxy, a very tiny proxy that can run in like a sidecar or just on your machine. That proxy will create this cert and just connect to the database securely. And then you can use localhost to connect to it. Or you can configure your JDBC driver to use an SSL socket factory that we created that will do this certificate exchange over a secure channel, right? So that your connection is still private to you. So to help you with it, what we have created, of course, the first thing is a starter that you can use. So given a Cloud SQL database, the way that you will connect to it, I mean, you can definitely use a JDBC method if you want to, but to make it even simpler, we can do something like Spring Cloud GCP starter, and we have this MySQL starter. Once you included this starter, you can actually go ahead and create a file, like an application properties file. Properties? Did I spell this right? Yeah, I hope so. Now, once you have that, then you can say, I need to configure my database. And here you can just configure the instance connection name, which is the instance name of that particular SQL database, and the database you actually want to use, right? So for example, here I just need to grab this instance connection name, put it here. So there's no IP address, there's no things that you need to look up. This is uniquely identifying your Cloud SQL database. And then we can just go ahead and give it the database name. And I think I have created one called events. Okay. Let me just double check. So I can go into this console. I can go see the database, and hopefully there is a database called events. Yeah, there it is. Okay. And that's it. That's all I have to do to connect to Cloud SQL. There's no complicated JDBC configuration here. But if you are using existing data sources where you have to configure the connection pools, you can still use the Spring data source configuration. So here we can set my password. Nobody record this, right? Nobody take a screenshot? And the username is jhipster as well. And unfortunately, when Hibernate auto-detects its database, it actually thinks that it is a ISAM database, but we actually need to use InnoDB for the driver. So to deal with that, let me see here. I think there's a, where did it go? Dialect type? No, let me see here. Spring data source dot. Does anyone remember how to configure that one? I think it's called database. One second. So database platform. Yeah, there we go. The database platform. Yeah, there we go. So that one has to be configured to use a MySQL DB stuff, right? So I actually don't remember what that looks like, but we can definitely just go and find it. So a very, very popular error message is ISM MySQL not work. And then the JDBC driver. There we go. And also Hibernate. And also InnoDB. Dialect. Oh, there we go. Oh, wait, you see this one? Yeah, you see it right here. So Stack Overflow has all the answers, but I'm actually looking for a very specific one. So I'm gonna look for Hibernate, dialect, MySQL, InnoDB, and I just need to grab that string instead. So let me see if I can find it. There it is. Yeah. So that's the one I need to use. Okay. Whew. That wasn't too bad. So I think that should be it. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to reconnect to with the SpringBoot run. I did a clean, and hopefully somewhere on the top, I am crossing my fingers right now. Did you see that? Wait a second. Let me closing on here. So you see here we are connecting to the Cloud SQL instance. This is the instance connection name I put. But this is the magical thing, obtaining an ephemeral certificate for Cloud SQL instance. So this is where the secure connection is being established. And once that is done, then everything else works exactly the same. And I can hopefully go ahead and then do a curl. And that will go to the REST endpoint. And behind the scenes, this should be going to the Cloud SQL instance rather than the HSQL instance. And I created this other one earlier, which is JavaSIG. Now you might be saying, wait a second, is this still really the real Cloud SQL? Or is that the one I just created? Well, just so you know, the one I created in the memory was capitalized SIG, right? And this one from Cloud SQL is actually just SIG with the, which one is the correct one, Frank? Is it capital? Oh, darn, all right. But you see how easy that is. It's very easy to just connect to the database. However, of course, that is the simplest thing that you may want to do. Let's try even more. What if you need to add some kind of tracing capability into your application? The way that you typically do this is by using Spring Cloud Sleuth. So you add Spring Cloud Sleuth and you install Zipkin, you use Spring Cloud Zipkin to capture all the trace information. You can of course do that, but if you don't want to use Zipkin, if you don't want to host your own Zipkin or Jaeger for that matter, we actually have a managed service called Stackdriver Trace. What I can do is to just help you store all of your trace data. And you don't have to worry about how much disk you actually need to store your trace data. You don't even have to worry about how many QPS you have because we are the service, so you don't have to manage your own instances yourself. So to use this thing, you can just add Spring Cloud Sleuth if you want to, just like you already do maybe with the Zipkin. But all you have to do is to just add another starter here called trace. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Of course, when you're tracing things, by default, it doesn't actually trace everything like 100% of the time. So just for the demo, I'm going to set the probability of trace to just 100%. And if I do it this way, if I go ahead and restart my application, let me do that, do a clear, wrong place. If I do a restart, right? So now I have trace integrated with Spring Cloud Sleuth that actually propagates the data to Stackdriver Trace rather than to Zipkin directly. Okay? And that's all it takes. And once this starts, I'm going to make a few calls. Curl HTTP, localhost 8080 events, maybe. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to make a few calls. And behind the scenes, we cache the trace information in a buffer. So it's going to flush the buffer either when it's full or on a periodic basis so that you don't hit the remote endpoints all the time. But assuming that the trace actually went through, we can actually go to the console and we can just see the trace list. And here I can hopefully do an auto reload. And if I zoom in here, you can see the trace that just took place. So this is just automatically integrated directly into your application. If you're using Spring Cloud Sleuth today, everything will just work exactly the same way. Okay. Now, if you want to use messaging, that's also very easy. So if you want to have to deal with like creating or managing your own instances, we can start using Spring Cloud. Just Cloud Popup. So if I go there and say Spring Cloud GCP starter, so everything's here, and I think there's a starter for Popup right here. But so what Popup is pretty much a global messaging system. Okay, unlike some of the messaging systems where you run it locally or you run it within your data center, just within a single zone, Popup is just a completely global system that you don't actually have to manage. I personally have pushed, I think, 100 million messages into Popup by a click of a button, and I think 100 million messages went through. They're really tiny messages. You went through in about 2.5 minutes, I think, right? Without me ever having to provision any infrastructure at all. So if you want to take advantage of that, I can just go to Popup, for example. Not that one. Let me do a little refresh. One second. There we go. And let me go to Popup. And there it is down here somewhere. There we go. Okay, so here's Popup. So if you want to create a new queue or a new topic, you can just go ahead and create one. So I'm going to say JavaSIG. Right? So I'm going to create this new topic. And that's it. It's actually right there. Where is it? JavaSIG. Yeah, right here on the bottom. Yeah. So I just created a new topic, and now I can send messages to it. There's no magic to it, just ready to be used. If I want to use this, so for example, I'm going to create a very small controller here. I'm going to say the app controller, and I'm going to just add the REST controller here. And I'm going to just do a very quick method here to say hello. I'm going to take in the name, right? I'm going to say return hello, and plus the name, okay? And with that in mind, I'm going to say this is a request mapping. I'm going to map it to hello, the endpoint, and with the name being passed in. Did I get it right? Yeah. And then I'm going to read the name from the path variable. Okay. Path variable, yeah. And of course, this is name. Okay, very cool. Now, if I want to use Popup, there are a couple of ways of doing this. Well, the most straightforward way is to just auto-wire a Popup template. If you're familiar with Spring, everything is like template-ized, I guess. So if you're using Mongo, you have a Mongo template. If you're using some kind of other database, CouchDB, you have a CouchDB template. Similarly, here we have a Popup template, and this will be automatically configured for you. And if every time that I want to send a message when somebody says hello, what I need to do is to say Popup template, and I can say publish. I'm just going to publish it to the topic I just created, and the payload would just be like name plus, I can type to random one, set hi, right? And that's it. That's all you need to do to potentially send the data to Popup. Now, to subscribe to it, for every one of these topics, we can create multiple subscriptions, right? So you can have multiple workers listening to the topic. It, again, can be spanned globally. So if I want to create a topic or a subscription, I can definitely do that as well. And I'm probably going to do that via the command line, just so you can see how that's done. So for example, from the command line, I can do something like gcloud Popup subscription. Where is it? Oh, I misspelled it. Popup subscription create JavaSIG subscription, right? And then I'm going to bind it to the topic called JavaSIG. So with a subscription, that's how the receivers are going to receive the messages. And finally, if I really want to just write another program to listen to the incoming messages, I can again use Spring integration. I can use Spring Cloud Strings. But to just make it easy, for example, I'm going to use a command line runner here. So I'm going to say command line runner, where I just listen to it directly from my application. So I'm going to say command line runner, CLI, right? And then I'm going to return a command line runner here. Oh, not that one. Where where I will actually print out the message that I received. So I'm going to say, here's a new command runner I'm going to do. And every time I start my application, I need to start a listener, right? So I can just, again, reuse the PopUp template here. And all I need to do is to subscribe. What do I subscribe on? I can subscribe on the subscription that I just created. And then this will implement a message receiver. And I can just go ahead and log them. So I'm going to use log.info, and I can just print out the message. So that's the PopUp message, get data to UTF-8 string, and I need to acknowledge it that I have received it and processed it, and that's it. So very quickly, I have an application that can push the data to the messaging system and receiving it at a global scale, right? So how many people think this will just work? Because I don't. And neither do you, which is great. So I'm crossing my fingers. This is my first time doing it, and I'm hoping that I didn't make any mistakes, but we will see. And then I'm going to show you something even cooler. So now I have my application started. I got my starter, so everything's auto-configured. So hopefully, if I say curl localhost 8080, and if I say hello Ray, at least it didn't error out. There's no null pointer, so I know everything works, right? It says hello Ray, right? But at the same time, it should have also pushed the message. Now, I know I made this mistake earlier. I need to actually make this into a bin, right? So this way the command line runner is actually going to run. So I'm going to just restart this, but before I do, let me just show you this. So I can do gcloud pops up subscriptions. What is that called? Pool. There we go. And I need to give it the name of the subscription. So what was that? JavaSIG pub? No, sub. There we go. Pub sub. Yeah. So if I actually publish the message, I would have received it in my messaging system. This is the queue, and that's it. Now, if I add it as a bin, now I have this receiver. Every time I actually push the message, it will just show up. That's the idea of this, right? So I'm just going to let it run. Let it start. And once the receiver kicks in, you're actually going to see the messages come through. There it is. So Ray said hi. So if I said, let me curl Frank. Frank, all right, yeah, there you go. And we can see the message being pushed through. So again, it's very, very simple to use. There's very little configuration you actually have to add. All right. Now, the last thing I really want to show you here on this demo is to say, well, what if your database is crawling to a stub? I don't know if that's what's happening to your databases, but let's assume you're using this database server that you cannot increase the size of it anymore. You can't just increase more memory. You're running out of this space. You need to go global. There's like nothing else you can do, right? And then what do? Well, the answer to that potentially is to migrate to a database that can actually scale out horizontally, like, for example, Spanner. So the way that you would use Spanner in this type of framework is very straightforward. You get the drill. First thing that you would do is to add the starter. And we actually have a starter for Spanner. So I'm going to use that. And since I'm not going to use JPA anymore, I'm going to get rid of the HC port here. That's gone. And I'm going to get rid of the JPA starter here because I don't need this anymore. Now, of course, that's going to cause a lot of issues. Number one, these entity annotations will go away because it will be very difficult to map Spanner potentially to the JPA constructs at this very moment. So what we can do is, rather than using the JPA annotations, I'm just going to use my Spanner annotations. When this actually catches up, let me just make sure my libraries are being loaded, and let me see here. Yeah, so hopefully there is table annotation. Do I not see it? Oh, that's no good. So let me do a maven clean package. I think maybe I put in the wrong palm, which is double check. Oh yeah, oh, I know why. Sorry. So because the Spanner starter is actually in another version of the Spring Cloud GCP project because it's still in beta. So it's not actually in the release form. So what that means is currently we're using Spring 1.00 RC1, which just came out actually yesterday. So instead of doing this, I'm going to use a build snapshot, which is in my local repository here. So let me try this one again. So I'm going to clean and package. That should be using my latest version of my application. Yeah, good. And now, hopefully, I have my table annotation. Good. And to indicate something is a key or ID, we use a primary key. And that is it. You can just use annotations to do your entity mapping. For the repository, of course, we don't have the JPA repository anymore, right? So rather than doing this, you can just use a CRUD repository. You can use the paging and sorting repository, or you can just use a spanner repository, just like that. Okay. With those two changes, your application is ready to use the spanner database. We actually support a lot more things. So for example, I can actually create something like this. I can say list of event. We actually implement a lot of the Spring Data idiomatic access methods. So for example, what we can do is to say find events by name. And I can pass the name in, right? So all of these things are idiomatic to Spring Data, and we actually implemented it. You can also use it with what do you call it, the custom queries as well, okay? And now, if I want to create my spanner database, this is what I'm going to do. All I need to do is to go to the console, go to spanner. And by the way, I haven't done this like live, so this is my first time. I'm going to create a new database in spanner called JavaSIG. And we can do regional or multi-regional. That would be global. In a global deployment, the availability for spanner is actually 5 nines, which is incredible, right? So we can do that if we want to, but this is not use a regional one. So I'm going to create this thing in US Central. And depending on how much load you have, you can say, well, I have a lot of load. I need to store a lot of data. I need to have a lot of QPS. Then you can just say how many nodes you need. Behind the scenes, we'll automatically shard the data for you. We'll manage the sharding automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Oh, so unfortunately, my spanner instance is right now, but that's okay. Let me try another one here. There we go. So I have another spanner instance. So what I'm going to do is, assuming I created the instance, I'm just going to create a new table. And this table I'm going to call JavaSIG. In this table, I can just go ahead and create, for example, the name of the table events. There we go. If I want to add a column, I just do, there we go, we call it ID. And it's an integer and not null, that's fine. And I'm going to add the name of the field, which is name, and that is going to be a string. As you can see, it's very much SQL-like, but rather than SQL where you have to specify the length, here we can just say max length. That's the maximum number of characters I can store. And then finally, I can just set up the primary key, and there I have a spanner database that I'm about to create. So the creation of the instance is very quick. Creating a new instance of spanner takes about 10 seconds. Creating a new table here took about 2 seconds, as you can see. So now I can go back to my application. And now, rather than using the Spring Cloud GCP stuff with the database, now I can just look for the spanner configuration. So we can here see the spanner instance ID, which is, what was that one I'm using? Clinic? No, it's called spanner. And then I can go ahead and see the spanner database, which I created, which is called JavaSIG. Okay? And that is pretty much it. Oh, sorry, one mistake. So, see how I created the table called events? What we have done here with this mapping is that, well, my entity is called event. So it's actually not going to work. Because it's going to look for a table called event without S. So let me just fix that very quickly. I'm going to say this maps to the table called events instead. I hope that works. I haven't done this yet, so we'll see, right? And now, let me do a clean and package. Whew, live demos. That's why I keep this to the last, right? Oh, wait, skip. All right. Who wants to wait for the test, right? You can have all the tests you want, but this is what you do. I know it. That's what everybody does. And then you test it when you go to the app on the UI, right? That's how we test things. So I'm going to do that test right now. So I'm going to go ahead and curl. Oh my goodness. All right, so. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Of course, yeah. See, that's why, yeah. So, so you need to do the SpringBoot run, so I'm going to do that. You're right, it does not work, because I did not start the server. All right. So let's try this out. Oh. shoot. It would be amazing if I just created a multi-regional database and that it actually starts properly. So what happened here? Oh, the database name must be provided, so let me do that. So let me go back to my property. Yeah, there we go. So Spring Cloud GCP, GCP Spanner, and I think there's the database name that I have to set. Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, wait, what? Where is it? Sorry. Oh yeah, that one. Did I not set up that properly? Well, let me just double check a few things. I do have another events too. There we go. Ah, events works. So let me try this one instead. It's pretty much the same thing. I done it once before, but they were still a little bit different. But let's try this out. So this one is actually going to another instance. I was so close, so close. I'm not quite sure which misconfiguration I did. But let's go to Spanner database here. There it is. So for this one, it will actually go into the instance called demo, I think. Yeah, there we go. So there's the demo instance. And then within here, there's the event. And that's the database. Okay, so that one actually starts properly. Let me do the curl. And there's the events. So that is actually coming from Spanner. Do you believe it? Because I don't. So again, the way to test it is that let's post something. So I'm going to say ID, choose, right? Do I really want to do this right now? Do I really want to do it? So I'm going to say ID is 1, and then this is JavaSIG, right? I think. Yeah, okay. So that created the event. So I'm going to post another one, which is going to be QCon. Oh boy. All right. So now if I do a curl, if I see the events, I should be able to see the 2 data entries. That's good so far. Now if I go to this events database on Spanner, if I go to data, oh, there we go. Whew. There are the 2 pieces of information. Now you might be saying, that could be fake. Thank you. You could also be saying this is fake, which I do not judge you for saying it. So I actually want to try this out myself. So I'm going to say another event which is really nice, which is called DevOps, right? So I'm going to go to DevOps. So I'm going to do that post. If I go back here, oh boy, if I do a refresh, oh there it is. So it is actually going to Spanner. Now you believe me. Now you actually believe me. Now one last thing is that if you're ready to deploy this application, you have lots and lots of options. You can go into the virtual machines, you can go into containers with Kubernetes engine. I'm going to show you something that's very, very fast. Which is our platform as a service called AppEngine. And to use AppEngine, the things that we just need to do is to potentially add the build plugin. Sorry, the plugin. Let me find it. So here I have the plugin for Maven, and where's my plugin for AppEngine? Do I have it? No, I'm in the wrong directory. Events 2. Oh yeah, it's called Events Works. So let me just show you this very quickly. I'm going to open up the POM. I'm going to find the AppEngine. There we go. So here I'm using a plugin that will deploy this application to AppEngine. That's it. A couple of lines of plugin. And then in the source, if I go into the web apps directory, how many people here use web.xml? Good for you. It's deprecated, right? Or nobody cares about it anymore. Unfortunately, we still have this vendor-specific web.xml. It's called AppEngine web.xml. So in this XML file, what we can do is to specify the auto-scaling capabilities, right? So if you want to auto-scale, you just get rid of manual scaling, and this will auto-scale by itself based on latency and the amount of requests you have. Or in this case, I'm going to use a super big instance that's of before 1 gigabyte of memory because we're running Java applications. And then we have a manual scaling that will scale this out to 2 instances. Okay? And the way that I'm going to deploy this application is just to do AppEngine deploy. And of course, this is what you do in production system is it tests, right? So what this is going to do behind the scenes is to package up all the things that I just built, right? Into an exploded WAR file, including that dual pointer, it's always here. And then it's going to only send the files I actually changed up to the cloud. So I changed 2 files in this case. And now it's provisioning all the infrastructures behind the scenes with the serving infrastructure, with load balancer, with if you want SSL certificates, we have Encrypt integration. And it's going to spin up 2 instances behind the snes, and is probably already ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a G-Cloud app browse. That's going to open up the URL here. And as you can see, my instance is still booting up, right? Because it takes about, I don't know, 10 seconds, 20 seconds to start on AppEngine. But once this starts, we should be able to see our application up and running. And there it is. And if I go into the events URL, you can see all the events I just created. Again, talking to Spanner behind the scenes. Now, the beauty of AppEngine is that it actually automatically scales out for you if you need it. We have one prominent user, which is Snapchat, that's actually using a lot of AppEngine behind the scenes, right? Now, of course, just being able to run your application is not so interesting. You can do that everywhere. But we can scale. We also come with a lot of the batteries included. What that means is all the logs that you output will go straight to centralized logging. So if I go here, if I go into the start URL, if I go and see my logs, these are grouped by the request, which is kind of nice. If I actually go and say hello, again, hello Ray. Okay, and if I come back here to the log, to autoplay, I should be able to see a hello Ray event, and then I can see all the logs that's associated with that particular request, this is asynchronous, so it will actually come in like right here, which is nice. So I can see there we have the hello message that I'm printing out, and so on and so forth. Now, what is the most awesome thing about this on Google Cloud is this actually works with AppEngine, with containers, with your application that's running in your data center. We can actually debug the application in production environment with no breaking changes or with no breaking points. What that means is, how many people here actually want to debug your production environment with IntelliJ? Yeah? And you know what's going to happen to that, right? The breakpoint is going to kick in, and your user have to wait for you to step through all the code. That's what somebody called job security. But it's a joke that came from my friend Baruch. Yes, I'm not taking any credit for it. However, this is what we can do. So I'm using AppEngine, so I have this application running. I can, if the code is on GitHub or on Google Cloud, I can just use it. It will just automatically synchronize. But because I'm using the code here, what I'm going to do is just upload the source code. And this actually works in IntelliJ too. So if I have this all set up in IntelliJ, I can just debug my application with IntelliJ. But I'm going to show you the website of things. So if I go into this console, if I go into my controller right here, there are two things I can do. Number one is, who wants to add a log message when you have a production issue? And you realize, I don't have enough logs. What do? You go back to the source code, you check out the right revisions, you do a hot patch, and then you wait 4 hours for it to deploy, or something. Or maybe next day, right? And by that time, the issue is gone, or you have so much trouble that you don't really care about this anymore. This is what we can do if you want to just add a log. I go here to log point, I have the debugging agent turned on by default. We use the same debugging agent in production, and I can just go ahead and say, I need a log message right here. And I need to know, hello, and this is how we debug in a language that don't have any good debugger support, right? We say, 1, I'm here, right? That's how we debug. And then when I say 2, I'm done, right? Now, as soon as I do this, every time I go to this endpoint, you're laughing because I know you do it as well. Go and refresh this a little bit, right? So I'm going to go back to the console. Oh, you're killing me here. I'm almost done here. You just have to put up with me for a few more minutes. So I'm going to go to my login console, of course. Oh, I got 3 minutes to go. Oh, so exciting. So I'm going to browse this application. I see the endpoint here that I called, and now check this out. Not only do you see the hello message, you see the log message as well. Yeah? This is pretty nice. So if you're actually trying to debug something live, you can do it. Okay? But there's more. And of course there's more. You can put a breakpoint in here that will stop the world. No, you can't. What you can do is you can add a snapshot point, or a snapshot, and I can say, I wonder what's happening on this line of code. Just add a snapshot there. Now watch. This is the last magic I'm going to perform. Everybody has the last trick, right? So this is my last trick. I'm just going to position it perfectly so you can see everything. So I'm going to refresh. Now watch. There it is. Do you see that? We just went ahead and captured the code stack directly in the live production application. Okay? If you have the privilege to see it, you can. Not only did it capture the stack, all the code stacks, we also captured the local variables that's within scope. This object as well, I can see exactly which endpoint I'm trying to call, right? I can go see the REST template here and such and such. And you can just explore and hopefully find out the issue very quickly and very easily. So I think that's all the time I have for you today. So thank you very much for your time. Spring Cloud GCP, and we are on GitHub, so if you have any issues, if you try this out, please provide us feedback directly on GitHub. We also have a code lab, so if you want to do everything I did today, you can just go to the code lab, and you can try this out on your computer as well. So thank you so much for your time.